Well, good morning, and many thanks for inviting me to take part in this event. I'm sorry that I can't join you in person. Let me start by saying that it seems quite clear to me that Russia regards Lithuania as a member of the European Union's awkward squad, the countries mostly in Central and Northern Europe that have a long and often painful history of relations with Russia, and have been among the most active supporters of the EU's tough line with Russia since 2014. And I suspect that most of Lithuania's political leaders are comfortable being part of the awkward squad. And given the history of your relations, I can't blame them for that. I think it's probably easier for Lithuania to take such a firm stance now because, unlike the situation in 1991, when you were in the process of regaining your independence, Vilnius no longer has to deal with Moscow on its own, or at best in an informal alignment with its Baltic neighbours. Uh, Instead, Lithuania is now a member of the European Union and NATO, and so it has backing, perhaps not always as much backing as it would like, but backing from its allies and partners. And I think that's very important. I mean, of course, there will always be some special bilateral issues between Russia and Lithuania, not least because Lithuania controls Russia's land access to Kaliningrad, and that's clearly an important bilateral issue. But in general, your policy can be seen within the context of an overall EU and NATO policy. Your relations with Russia are part of and are influenced by the overall relationship between Russia and the EU and NATO. So you're no longer isolated. That's a significant change for the better. Um, Equally, you are also affected when the overall relationship is not as good as it might be. So if that move out of isolation is a change for the better, there have also been some negative changes over the last 30 years that affect the situation today. In the immediate aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation was trying to show itself to be a good European citizen. We could argue about how sincerely some parts of the Russian system were pursuing that goal. I was in Moscow myself in the 1990s, and it's quite clear that while some people sincerely wanted Russia to become, as they put it, a normal European country, there were others for whom this was just a temporary phase until Russia could regain its strength. But let's say that in general, Russia recognized the independence of the Baltic states. It withdrew its troops from their territory, and it was trying to make a good impression. There were various bilateral agreements with its neighbors. Trade flowed. Maybe relations were not that warm, but they were still reasonably positive. Now, that has not been the case for some time. It certainly hasn't been the case since Russia's annexation of Crimea and its invasion of the Donbass in 2014. And in the Baltic region, Russia has been strengthening its military presence in Kaliningrad. It's been increasing the level of its naval activities in the Baltic Sea. It's been strengthening its already considerable influence in Belarus, and it's generally been making life uncomfortable for Lithuania and the neighboring countries. So that is definitely a change for the worse. I'm quite surprised by how much effort the Russian Foreign Ministry puts into damaging the reputation of Lithuania and other countries in the region. I was recently having a look at the Russian Foreign Ministry's human rights report. Not something that I would recommend as an interesting read, but there we are. But it's amazing how much effort the Russian authorities put into portraying Lithuania as a country where human rights are violated with impunity and neo-Nazism flourishes. I suppose the only bright spot, if you're a Lithuanian, is that the Latvians get 50% more pages attacking their human rights record. But apart from these rhetorical attacks on Lithuania, Russia's negative attitude also has practical effects, particularly in the economic sphere. Uh, Russia's response to EU sanctions in 2014 probably hurt the Lithuanian economy proportionately more than any other EU economy. And despite that, you have been resolute in doing things that Russia objects to, whether that's supporting Ukraine or providing a haven for Russians who have been labeled as foreign agents in Russia itself or who have been threatened in some way, or also providing a major center for the Belarusian opposition in exile. And I can only applaud the courage shown by Lithuanian governments over many years in standing up to Russian pressure. Now, the question that we were asked was whether good neighborly relations with Russia are possible. And I must say that I'm pessimistic under current circumstances. I might think that Russia's interests would be better served by an effort to improve relations with all of its Western neighbors, including Lithuania, but that's clearly not the way that Vladimir Putin sees the situation. He prefers neighbors who are weak, chaotic, who may fear and even hate Russia, but who are easily dominated by Moscow. And I think that for him, to find Lithuania flourishing after 30 years of re-established independence as a free, democratic, increasingly prosperous European nation must be quite annoying, and doubly so because of the base, the haven that you provide for his critics. And so my rather pessimistic conclusion is that for the next decade, or perhaps even longer, if Putin stays in office that long, the relationship between Vilnius and Moscow is destined to be a tense one. More optimistically, I don't regard that as being a serious problem as long as Lithuania remains a firm, well-established member of the EU and NATO and keeps its bilateral relationships with key allies, partners, and neighbors in good order. In that case, I think that you may regret, but you have nothing to fear from tense relations with Russia. And I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.